In the meantime, I have gone back and looked at schedules of our schools and looked at recess. And I'm going to use Mrs. Cole, who is sitting here at Grassy Lake. And I have looked at her schedule. And she has recess built into her schedule. And frankly, she has, I believe it's an hour and 15 minutes per week. It's 15 minutes per day, in addition to the other specials that they have. And so she has well exceeded what that recommendation has. At her school, she is able to have the physical education requirement and recess, and she has other specials. And remember, our schools are trying to also provide other types of enrichment opportunities like art or music, depending, and then they're also getting the media to go into the library and the media center and have those kinds of things and opportunities. So, each school is a little different based on the needs of that school, and so that's why it's so important that this be at the local school. Now, I hear the concerns of the parents that have spoken here and the grandparents that have spoken here and some of the community members, and we go back to the situation of, well, this school is giving no recess. Well, then that was rescinded, and now they're giving some recess. And sometimes you have a school where it may be right after lunch, and there may be a 5-minute break in there. And so I know that that's not what they're talking about. And they do want to see that it is valued and that teachers have that. So at this point in time, after looking at the schedules, I think that what is very doable, and why I have not come forth with a mandatory, you will have X number of minutes per day, is because each day is a little different from one school to the next, depending on what specials they have and how they have it structured, and their configuration of facilities. It became very, very difficult. You cannot do a one-size-fits-all. And that's just, me looking at their schedules and talking with our principals. So, again, I also see that we have another overlay of, needing to take it to the SAC, not depending on who the parents that are approved on an SAC. And it is mandated that the majority of the SAC be parents. Whether they all come or not, that may vary from meeting to meeting. But that's why I think you saw some of the non-negotiables in there, to ensure that it is the majority of the parents that are there to have this issue vetted, and it could not be controlled by the principal alone with it. And the SACs are bound by sunshine, so all those sunshine rules apply for the members of which the principal is a member of that team. So again, it needs to be very transparent. So we try to build upon the work of the committee to do that. But at this point in time, what I am prepared to do tomorrow, under my authority as the superintendent, to our elementary schools and to communicate to the teachers and the principals at our elementary schools, is that recess is valued, it is supported in our district, and it does play a very important role in the health and well-being of the learning environment in our schools, and that the teachers should be empowered to make a decision when their children need recess, and that there would be a minimum of 60 minutes worth of recess per week at the discretion of the teachers, when it is developmentally appropriate for the children in the classroom based on the learning activities in that classroom at that moment in time. The reasons I have not done it per day is because a one-size-fits-all is very difficult based on the uniquenesses from one classroom to the next, one school to the next, that I never want to put a teacher in a situation where they would be out of compliance. Because of that, they should not be disciplined for that, and to empower teachers to be able to do that. I would love to be able to say that 150 minutes of recess can be mandated in our schools across the board. I do not believe that that is 100% feasible in every single school, as much as we'd like to with all the things that are on the plates of our teachers. We can work towards that, but I do not feel that I can mandate that at this point in time. But I am, as of tomorrow, can, under my authority, mandate a minimum of 60 minutes per week at the discretion of the teacher.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent and the committee. If there are questions, comments, Bill?
Yep. One of my biggest concerns has been another policy or another mandate. But I think I had a conversation with the superintendent, and under her authority, that she can for sure guarantee that the students are getting a minimum of 60 minutes. And I think that's where it should be, is with the teachers. I think that with the superintendent and her statement of value, that the students will be afforded the recess. And I think that this is a great way to, for me, is a great way for this issue, the superintendent monitoring it for accountability. I think that, and parents certainly will be vigilant with making sure that their students get recess. I think this is a good way to go, me personally.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brandenburg?
Well, I think that Mr. Matthias phrased it very well, but still, it will go before the SACs before December 18th, so that part is no longer.
Actually, what I will be doing is putting I have done what I call management
Okay.
directives for me as the superintendent, and I will put this in language that will go to our elementary schools. And I want them to communicate it to their SACs, but I don't want them to have to, do all this overlay. They can certainly do way more than 60 minutes. It will depend on what their schedule is and that. And like in the case of Grassy Lake, they do more than 60 minutes. In some of our schools, they do some different activity type things that the children can choose from. We've given them the definition. We've come to consensus on that. That will be the first thing on the management directive to define so that they know that. We will put how we will be monitoring this with that accountability as well.
And I appreciate that clarification, because I know it was mentioned a little while ago about what the recommendations were from the committee. So I just want to make sure that it is clear to everyone, because I don't want to get emails from people saying, well, that never came to our SAC, and at the last meeting, it was told that it would. So I just want to I want that clarification for the people who are here, who can also go back and share it with the other people who are not able to be with us today, because in all honesty, it seems like it's coming from one school. And so if that's going to, I support what you have shared, and that you will share that with the principals in the elementary schools.
If I can follow up with clarification there, what we will do, because this has gone through a committee, there was a committee recommendation that brought to highlight the SAC, I will ask that the information in the superintendent's directive be shared with the SAC so that they're also on the same page as a communication, so that we're all on the same page with that, completely with that.
Okay, very good.
Dr. Howard?
And I know that's not, you didn't state it that way, but if we can make sure that the principals are aware, they can add as they need
Yes.
to. I'm comfortable with that. The one thing I will say is, and I've read through the Miami-Dade and some other ones, and that is my concern, that if we put one of these in place, in order to change it as a board policy, you're looking at another 28 days. So we're still 6 weeks out from being able to do a policy, and if it's a problem, then we're trying to fix it again. If what you do takes care of the problem, we don't have anymore, or we can come back and revisit it as a policy as well. But waiting another 6 weeks to get this through, plus the SAC time and all of those parts becomes problematic in order to work it through. But if they have that and principals can add, it's an hour, so I can be comfortable with that.
Okay, and my comments are all written down here. We don't need another layer of bureaucracy, which is what going through SAC is. I served on SAC, and I'm sure some of these parents out there have. And that's just another layer to go back in. Dr. Moxley said it very well. The teacher knows her students. They're going to know when they need a break. So let's just leave it up to them and not add another policy or another layer that we have to go through. I mean, there's no reason for it. So I am for a minimum of the 60 minutes per week. And as you said, if individual schools can do it longer, and some of them do, they have more time in there, along with their 150 minutes of PE, which is separate, then I'm for doing it this way, as long as all of your principals understand you're in charge.
We will make sure that we have met with the principals. Again, and Mrs. Cole is our chair of the elementary principals group, so we will be reiterating it. Mrs. Arnold and Mrs. Marshall are assessors for our elementary principals, so they will be monitoring it as well as myself. The other part to it is that I think that if there is a school that seems to be struggling with meeting the minimum, we will make sure that we are out and we will be working with individual schools as needed to make sure that this is met.
Okay. Just Bill's finger down there. So his finger's 4 years.
As important as it is for the administrators, it also is important that we know and we're empowering the teachers to know when it's appropriate and that it's okay. You know what I mean? So I want these teachers to actually now feel like that they're the professional, that they'll make the judgment.
Some of the follow-up that we have to do is, there are a number of state district mandates that we are starting to add on. And this is essentially a mandate as well. We need to start adding this time up because as a board member, I don't know how much time we have in a week or over the period of a year. And so as we, whether we're adding in another bullying program or when we add in red ribbon or all of these other things, in many cases you're saying yes, but there's not a overarching view of how many hours we actually have or what we're doing on those mandates. So I know that's a big work, but for me, I'd like to be able to see how much time, because when somebody asks me, well, why can't we do this? I can't, because I don't have that operational overview and I don't know that we've ever done it. I've never seen it for years, so I think it'd be beneficial for everybody.
And we can certainly work on that. Again, each school is a little different with regards to how they approach certain things, and we've given them some flexibility. And one of the reasons that it's concerning to me about not having a one-size-fits-all, but putting some minimums in there and giving them some flexibility to add on is because, the schools that are in the lowest 300, they have some additional mandates on top of them. And I do agree that those children need recess, even probably more. I also agree that younger children need more recess than maybe the 4th and 5th graders, although everybody needs breaks built in there when they are, when they become where they're not paying attention to that activity because they've been sitting too long, that you need to have those breaks in there. But I do believe the teachers are very well equipped to be able to make those judgment calls, and we need to allow them to do those jobs. And I believe they want to. So, but to answer your question specifically, we will try and give you the framework of the mandates that are, and we have master schedules with it. But when it comes to, like, you've got this bullying red ribbon week.
Yeah, we don't have those.
Those you won't necessarily see in the master schedule.
But those are things that we approve and that we add in.
And we can identify
But
those.
Right.
So to be able to tell the difference between one of our struggling schools who are in the lower 300 compared to the others, I understand there's a difference,